But it all changed with the internet because it became so much easier to collect data about us, so much cheaper to store it, and so much more possible to process it. This law was passed because it came out that there were a lot of data brokers that were collecting people's data and selling it to enemies of the state.
Yeah, I was outside. Well, I got coffee while you had a meeting this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least you brought me one.
I brought you coffee.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring you the outside, though.
Hello, Vermont. I'm Andy Julo.
And I'm Joanna Grossman.
And this is There's No Way in Creamy.
Vermont, politics, culture, and beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello and welcome to There's No A in Creamy. How you doing, Andy?
That's your line. I'm doing really great. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day.
Look, check it out. It is so nice, and we're recording in the podcast office again, which is really fun.
We haven't actually been outside, but it looks really nice. We have big windows.
Yeah, I was outside. Well, I got coffee while you had a meeting this morning.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, at least you brought me one.
I brought you coffee.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring you the outside, though. It was nice out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you do your calls, I'll go outside.
Sure. Yeah. Rub it in.
That's right.
Yeah. This was a very interesting week so far. The U.S. Secretary of Education made a surprise visit to one of the schools in Essex.
Absolutely. It was a surprise to me that we still have a U.S. Secretary of Education. I thought we had kind of given up on the whole education thing, but...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the students in Essex responded to that by walking out.
Good for them.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, there's hope with the youth.
The youths are, there's some hope for them.
It was inspiring.
They may not be educated or they may not have their education funded.
Right.
But
yeah. But they know a bad thing when they hear about it.
That's right.
Or they see it or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't this, what was the background of this education secretary? She's like a millionaire, right?
Yeah, and it was an
Was
unplanned
she like a wrestler
visit.
or something? Like, I don't know. It was like an absurd, I can't even follow this anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't, and it was unplanned. It was like they found out, someone found out they were coming, and then so I don't know what the story was.
The clown car pulled up, somebody jumped out and claimed to be the U.S. Secretary of Education.
Well, I saw the day before, there were in the activist circuit, there was show up for this is happening, this person is coming to one of the Essex schools.
My favorite sign from one of the protesters was Dolores Umbridge, go home.
Queen.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, the signs are the best.
Was she wearing pink too? She might have been.
But we'll just see it when we open Instagram. It'll just be there. We won't have to do any work.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm okay with it then. If I don't have to put anything into it, I'll do it.
Well, speaking of new media not doing a lot of work or, putting much into it, that's a great segue.
Yeah. Speaking of people I didn't know existed or were employed anymore.
Yeah. So I had little backstory. So last year we had a state senator, who had to resign because he was caught in a conservative chat room, praising Nazis and some pretty offensive stuff. And he had to resign. And then with less than 12 hours notice, I got a little inquiry from him yesterday, demanding that I provide him materials for a blog post he's writing for a conservative outlet. And I had less than 12 hours, and he, was trying to say, oh, I've got the materials from all the other candidates already. And I was like, I wonder why I could be last. And I was just that's not a really reasonable turnaround. And I don't collaborate with Nazis. It's not really my thing. So I don't know. Good luck to him.
Good luck to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good times.
Good to see his name pop up in the inbox.
Yeah.
Hooray.
It's funny. I for a minute I was like, who is that? I actually didn't remember. I did this heartfelt, I don't know if he even knows this, but when it happened, I did this heartfelt reel on Instagram about what it's like to be a Jew in Vermont politics and have a sitting elected official praise Nazis and how crummy that felt. I have Holocaust survivors in my family. It's really not okay. And it's, but I guess I suppressed that memory because when his name first popped up in my inbox, I was like, why do I know that name? But, anyway.
And as far as we know, what he wrote in that chat room is really his only qualification to be a journalist.
Yes, I think so.
No indication otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Nothing on the
interesting.
resume that should say, hey, this guy's a really good writer and maybe he'll be a good journalist.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how that content comes out.
Especially now.
Especially now. Yeah. Good times.
Yep.
It should be entertaining. Okay. Hard pivot. Actually, let's talk about someone who has really contributed something positive to the media landscape. So I'm going to change it up really quick.
All right.
Yeah, so our friend Kurt Wright is hosting Morning Drive again. He's going to be back.
Yeah, starting like this week, I believe.
Yes. Obviously, he's to the right of us, but he's been really an amazing contributor to the conversation for a long time.
Yeah, and a good person to have in the chair since we're running up to an election here, and he has so much experience. Being a former legislator, he knows so much about that process and just adds a whole bunch to the conversation, and it's good to have him back.
Oh, yeah, it really is. It's funny, like, as a campaign manager, I had so many candidates go through his green room, and then he was back for a week recently subbing and had me and my treasurer, Ben Travers, in as two of his first guests, and that was so fun just to see him again and see him doing well. And now he's back on Morning Drive. So
glad he's healthy and back at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's just in time for election season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's going on with your day job lately, Andy?
Oh, yeah. So we are, my regional development corporation is part of it's funny because you've got these these economic development plans that go on at your town level, and then they can go on at the state level. Although, as Allie Richards pointed out, we have no state economic development plan, and we have not had one for years. And then there's like the federal level, and the federal level recognizes these completely different districts, which are like chunks of Vermont. And mine is the northern part of Vermont. So it stretches from Grand Isle County all the way over to the Northeast Kingdom, running right along the border. And so you have to submit these economic development plans as those regions to the Economic Development Authority, which is the federal body that oversees all of this. And we did that. We do every 5 years. We come up with a plan and we submitted ours. And they got kicked back by the Trump administration. And I know colleagues in the southern part of the state have had the same thing because they included these controversial words such as diversity.
Oh, no.
Had to remove any reference to diversity.
Oh, my gosh.
There's no diversity in America anymore. We talked about threats to climate change. Those had to be removed. You're not allowed to reference climate change.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, we have
It's happening whether we like it or not, people.
Can't talk about climate-driven flooding.
Oh, God.
At all. So somehow you have to craft an economic development plan to deal with the issues that we have, which come around diversity and threats from climate change without actually mentioning any of those specifically. And this is why when you apply for a grant, you need to cite sources like where is the identified need, and you need to cite your plans. So you're citing either your town plan, your regional plan, or your state plan. And not having a state plan means we have to default to the regional plans,
Oh my gosh.
which are now being defined by the Trump administration. So when you have to apply for a grant and your regional plan only says we want to see all women barefoot and pregnant and in the kitchen, it doesn't help you get that grant to build that facility that you need for infrastructure for your town. So we should probably think about, as we've been talking about this quite a bit on the show, is like, if the federal government's going to fail us, we need to do more at the state. We should really think about getting back on that horse and getting ourselves a state economic development plan that we can use to cite for grants that we need to build infrastructure.
The part about denying climate-related flooding is especially terrifying. I mean, those are all horrible, but
Right.
I mean, so many people's lives have been like destroyed or turned upside down by flooding in Vermont, and to deny that reality, I mean, that's just denialist to the extreme.
It is. It's not helpful. And it's actually just going to lead to further disasters if we can't actually plan and provide for the potential of further floods in the future.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yep.
That's rough. Yeah, I mean, we really, man, it's just we have to protect Vermont. It's like our only option.
We, like you keep saying, like we need to pull away from federalism. We've been pushing ourselves to federalism because
And it kills me, you know?
it is the better way to do it. We've talked about healthcare a lot, and like everything we try to do at the state level, we can do it, we should do it. But man, this would be so much easier if we had a national solution and could leverage that power to lower healthcare costs. Like it's there for the taking.
It sure is.
Yeah, I hope that the next Democratic candidate for president that comes along actually will push this because we need it.
I sure hope so. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Going on a little side there.
Speaking of candidates and elected officials, so the filing deadline just passed to run for office. I filed, yay!
You did.
It was really fun experience. Actually, the county clerk couldn't have been kinder and just more welcoming, and it was a really positive moment actually.
Nice.
And yeah, we heard about like super last minute, so many elected officials just calling it and deciding they were not running for re-election.
Yeah. Yep.
And a few deciding they were last minute as well.
A few deciding they were last minute, not giving a whole lot of heads up there that they were vacating. It's just it's not great for democracy when people are knowing that they're going to step aside and not giving some window for people to put in a petition and really open it up.
Yeah.
In some cases, they may be whispering to somebody, hey, I'm not going to be filing. You can go ahead and put your signatures in, and then you'll be on the ballot.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked. I mean, I guess we suspected that the governor was running again, but I mean, he did really wait till the last possible second to share that, and that makes it obviously really hard to stage a challenge. And, you know, a competitive election is how we work out what we need from our leaders, you know, in a thoughtful and critical thinking kind of way. So that was a real bummer. I mean, a number of legislators, like, you know, our House Speaker, Jill Karwinski, announced last minute she wasn't running for re-election. Huge shock to the system. A lot of legislators, even some of her own staff, apparently did not know. So that was pretty surprising. And a number of legislators here in Burlington, and Connor Casey was another one who was really surprising. And
Mary Catherine Stone.
Mary Catherine, Barbara Rachelson. Yeah. There's a few other folks like really were last minute and the thing is, like, you know, you need to get at least 100 signatures to get on the ballot. So like if you find out like that day, like, I mean, how can people possibly plan? Some of those seats actually now do not have Democrats running in the primary because it happens so fast.
Yeah, and that's really unusual because a lot of times what you see is they will tell one person who they want to take, you know, their seat. Yeah. And they'll be standing there having their petition ready, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And that's awful for democracy, too, especially in districts where one party dominates the electorate. So that whoever's on the primary ballot is going to get through. That's terrible. But we saw on this one where there was nobody there, which just throws the whole thing into chaos.
It's so frustrating. I mean, when I was county chair, it used to drive me crazy that people wouldn't let me know what they were up to ahead of time so I could help them recruit. And I'm still, you know, I'm one of the county's 2 members of the state committee. The county chair didn't know, like, you know, I talked to other party leaders and I was like, did you know these folks weren't running, you know? And no, I had no idea. So it's like we could have used that position to reach out to the hundreds of Democrats that we interact with to, you know, encourage people to run. But no, like, you know, we didn't know. And so it's nuts to think about how like protective the caucus can be about like their votes and, oh, this could undermine the caucus. And then to not protect the actual literal seat at all. Yeah. What was the point?
I don't know. We've heard so much talk about, run for office. We need more people to run for office. Just run for office. And we heard Becca White say this at the No Kings rally. She's like, I want to see people out there running for office. And her seatmate, Allison Clarkson, announced with plenty of time.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. And now Becca's in a primary with a lot of people. And still smiling and taking that on because that's democracy.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's walking the walk.
Yo, she really is. Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising, but yeah. A lot of other stuff happening like right at the end of so session's out, school's out. Technically they could come back for a veto session, but the word on the street is that they're not going to be.
Yeah, it's scheduled, but the word is they're not going to use it.
Yeah. And yeah, they did hammer out a new ed bill right at the end. We're going to be talking more about that with an expert in an upcoming episode. But so they did soften on the forced mergers position, which is a start.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that, or should we leave it for the next time we talk about it?
I mean, it's remains. I think the foundation formula may force those mergers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're going to find that all the districts below a certain threshold that the governor didn't want to be able to go on,
Yeah.
will immediately need to cease once the foundation formula goes into effect. They just won't be able to function. They may have gotten it through the back door.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was annoyed by is this messaging that it was sort of like that X-73 was like rolled back, but that's not really what happened. Like
Right.
the 63 million is still coming out of our schools, and it's actually happening a year earlier. And so that's, I mean, I'm in my district in Chittenden County, that's not going to be good for us.
A year earlier, and you'll be stepping into it through threshold penalties in the interim.
Right.
So, yeah, money's going to start to be pulled from the system very quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we don't really have any structural changes to actually accommodate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not enamored with the outcome, and it's not going to be good for my community. I know that my school district and a lot of the other school districts in the county are very upset.
We'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that for sure. So another big topic this session was data privacy. And there was a hard swing to improve Vermont's data privacy. And obviously the session is over, but we got to talk to one of the experts who testified on this issue, Ryan Kriger.
Yeah, we actually tuned into Senate Economic Development one night.
Oh, yeah.
And saw Ryan, and he was testifying before that committee, and I thought, man, this guy knows his stuff. We should get him on the show.
Yeah.
And we did.
We did. Yeah, it was great. It was a really interesting interview, really fascinating. And it's something that you'd think is like super niche, but like how your data that's like collected on your phone and through your social media really affects all of us and our families and our safety.
Yep.
And he's really been working on this, and he's an expert. And
He's an expert on this, and then we later found out he's an expert on sprinkles.
that's right. He took it he like really leveled it up.
He went to his pantry and pulled out was it like a German sprinkle or something like that? The ones you have to have.
Yes, that was so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly
So,
extraordinary.
Make sure you stick around to the end.
Yeah.
You're
And
gonna
you
learn
should
something.
watch the video for that part because it was just extraordinary.
Yep.
Yay. All
Enjoy.
right. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to There's No A in Creamy, Ryan Kriger. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
So we're here to talk about data privacy. That's been a big initiative here this year in Vermont. And we're wondering if you could tell us a little about yourself and your expertise and how you've gotten into this.
Sure. So I joined the Vermont Attorney General's office about 15 years ago, doing consumer protection and antitrust enforcement in their public protection division. And over time, I kind of moved into data security, data breach notification, and privacy. And I have a computer science background before I went to law school, so it kind of was like a natural fit. And then in 2018, I had everyone at the AGO helped out with legislation in their specialty area as far as advising the legislature. So on the privacy and data breach stuff, I sometimes would testify. In 2018, there was the data broker registration bill, which was an idea I kind of hashed out with the chair of the committee and then worked on negotiating and helping to draft and going through all the amendments and all that other stuff. Industry pushed back. So then in 2022, I left the Attorney General's office and went to the Federal Trade Commission, working remotely. I was there for about 3.5 years, left last year. And then in January, I started at the Massachusetts Attorney General's office as their Deputy Chief of the Privacy and Responsible Technology Division. Still takes me a few seconds to remember that. And at this point, it's important that I say that everything I say here today are my own opinions. They're not the opinion of the Attorney General of Massachusetts or their office or probably anybody at all. So,
Fair enough. Well, we're glad you're here.
good to be here.
So data privacy, we're hearing a lot about it, and particularly in state houses lately, and it may be something that people picture differently in their own minds. What are we talking about when we talk about data privacy these days?
Well, data privacy has kind of grown to encompass a lot of different concepts, honestly, but the core notion is it is what people can do with information about ourselves, with our personal data, who gets to see it, who gets to use it, how they get to use it. And the baseline here in the US is basically, for the most part, anyone can do almost anything they want with our data with almost no controls over it. That was pretty much the situation a decade ago. New laws have been coming online, which are changing that. And there were always some federal laws that covered things like our medical health information, if your hospital collects it, or children's information collected online to a certain degree. Our credit reports, there have always been, in the US, there have always been these tiny slices of society that have laws attached to them. The term for it is sectoral privacy, but no comprehensive privacy that applies to everything. So this has always been the case. Pre-internet, it wasn't as big a deal, but there were companies that would collect subscription lists from magazines was a big one, because the magazines you subscribe to tell, people about what your interests are. So the junk mail you received might have been tied to the magazines you were subscribed to, that sort of thing. But it all changed with the internet because it became so much easier to collect data about us, so much cheaper to store it, and so much more possible to process it. These three things, the ease of collection, the cost of storage coming down, and processing speed increasing, has made it a much more trivial matter to collect information about us and use it.
That makes sense. So something we've been talking about and thinking about a lot is the state of the country in terms of the federal government and the state, and how that's changed so much with the rise of fascism. And I'm curious if you could talk with us a little bit about why do states need, you talked a little about this, but why do states need to do this? What are the existing federal protections, and what do we need to do at the state level now that maybe we didn't before?
Sure. So I mentioned that we are a sectoral privacy regime here in the US, which means that not only are certain sectors regulated, but huge sectors are not regulated at all. So to give you one example, a lot of people think that our health information is protected because of HIPAA. Everyone's heard of HIPAA. But HIPAA only covers health information that is in the possession of, quote, covered entities or their associates. Covered entities are mostly medical care providers. So if your health information is in the hands of a hospital, they have to follow HIPAA. If your health information is in the hands of a marketing agency or a data broker or Google, those protections don't apply. And, they can get your health information by deriving it from the searches you do, from purchasing your purchase history from pharmacies. You can imagine things you buy over the counter in pharmacies are going to tell a lot about, your current health situation. If you go on WebMD and do searches, if you go into a health app, all of these health apps that you can download off of the app stores, if they are not affiliated with a hospital, if a doctor did not prescribe you to use a certain app, then your data is pretty much, fair game. So there has been a push to change this at the federal level for, 30 years around. And the model everyone looks at is Europe. Europe has a comprehensive law called GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And it covers all data, no matter who has it. It's just one rule that applies to everybody. And people have been saying, we need something like that. And I think, honestly, everyone I've talked to says a federal law would be the better way to go. There should be one law that applies to everyone as long as it's a strong law. But we're not seeing it happen. So the states have to step in because someone has to protect people.
And maybe we just covered this, but I mean, how do we need to be legislating to protect people? Is it emulating that European law at the national level? Is it passing some of these laws that we have had at the federal level die? Or is it something maybe even more progressive than that?
So a lot of the comprehensive laws out there provide people with rights that they don't currently have. So a right to go to a company and say, are you collecting information on me? And what information is that? So a right to access. A right to correct. I'd like to see the information you have on me and make sure that it is accurate. In many cases, a right to delete. I want you to delete all the information you have on me. I think some of these laws have put in a right to data portability. So I want to be able to download my data and move it to one of your competitors. You shouldn't be able to keep me in your, ecosystem, just because you own all of my data. So those are some of the affirmative rights that you get. Then a lot of these laws are putting obligations on businesses. One of those obligations, a big one, is the duty of data minimization. Now, data minimization is a really important concept in privacy. And it basically says only collect the data you need and don't collect any more. And then you couple that with a concept called use limitation, which is if you collect it for one use, you can't use it for a different use. So for example, I believe Twitter got into trouble with the FTC a while ago. They were collecting people's phone numbers for dual factor authentication, but then using those phone numbers for other purposes, which, if you give your phone number to a company because you think you need it for security, you're hoping they're not going to use it for marketing or other purposes. In the absence of these laws, companies don't have to collect only the information they need. They don't have to use it only for a limited purpose, and they don't. They sell it downstream, and then others can use it for other purposes. And these laws try to stop that sort of thing from happening with greater or lesser success. So those are, two of the examples. Now, a lot of them have information about what to do about children's data, sensitive data like geolocation, health data, things like that. But these are all kind of in the absence of what's often called the Wild West. Companies can collect as much data about you as they want. They can do whatever they want with it. And that could be selling it to data brokers who then sell it on to other people. Big purpose is marketing and targeted advertising, but they could also sell it to governments. After the Dobbs decision, there was reporting that some states were buying people's precise geolocation data. So this is data that is just collected off our phones by apps that are installed on our phones, and using that to determine where people were going. Precise geolocation data is incredibly sensitive because if you can track where someone is going, you know where they live. That's where they probably are 8 hours every evening, right? You can sense if they are, looking for family planning, if they're going into a Planned Parenthood center. You can figure out their religion by what, religious buildings they're going into. If they're going into a psychiatrist's office, you can tell, that there's mental health issues. So there's all sorts of stuff you can derive. It basically gives people the ability to track people and anywhere they go. So there was reports that some companies were buying that information. So that's like one example of, what could happen with them. There's also currently reports that some data brokers are selling our information to ICE, for example. That's another one.
Well, you led me right into my next question. So I love for you to help our listeners understand who this movement is trying to regulate and help them understand what data brokers are a little bit. Because this is not about, there's some misinformation out there that this is about hospitals or schools. And my understanding is that it is really not, that's not really the problem.
Sure. So many of these bills have explicit carve-outs, first off, for data that is covered by HIPAA or uses that are already being used by HIPAA, data that's covered by FERPA. I'm not going to speak directly to the S71 because I don't know what the exemptions are going to look like. It hasn't passed yet if it does pass. So there are a lot of carve-outs for things like that. Another one we hear is, oh, small businesses are going to be hurt. Small businesses are going to be hurt. All of these comprehensive laws have a threshold that only businesses of above a certain size are affected. Often it'll be above a revenue threshold, how much money you made last year. Sometimes it'll say only companies that collect the data of X thousand consumers. And then they usually have something that says, or if more than 50% of their revenue, or if any of their revenue comes from the sale of data, they're actually making money off the sale of data, which is basically saying data brokers, whatever size you are, you're going to be captured by this law. So other than the revenue thresholds, the laws would kind of have broad application. What could you give me more about the question of what you're trying to go to? Or?
Yeah, I think if you could help our listeners understand, like the term data broker might be new to a lot of people, and I'm wondering if you can just share a little bit about what they are and why that's something that we need to regulate.
Sure. Okay. So the data broker industry has been around for a long time. In the 60s and 70s, these were the guys who were collecting our subscription information. The credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, you could think of them as a specialized data broker with regard to our credit information. They also happen to be data brokers with regard to all our other information as well. They generally have a Fair Credit Reporting Act regulated arm and a data broker arm that does all the other information. Other ones, Axiom is the name of a big one. LexisNexis is a big data broker. So there are all sorts. And data brokers can be massive multinational corporations, and they can be teeny tiny corporations. Okay, there was a breach of a data broker in Florida a few years back. I believe it was called National Public Data, which was they may have only had a handful of employees, because collecting people's data can be as easy as going around and screen scraping information, collecting information from government databases, or buying it from one of the other data brokers and reselling it. So you don't have to be a large entity to collect a lot of data about people. One of the few privacy laws the federal government has passed in the past 20 years, maybe the only, was called PADFA, Protecting Americans' Data from Foreign Adversaries Act of 2024. And this law was passed because it came out that there were a lot of data brokers that were collecting people's data and selling it to enemies of the state. They were selling it to Russia, to North Korea, to China. And we're talking data of legislators and law enforcement and military people. And so, these companies, a lot of them, I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but a lot of them don't seem to have a lot of scruples about who they're going to sell their data to, and they'll sell it to pretty much anybody, and without really seemingly to care about the consequences that could have. Another kind of subspecialty of data brokers, I guess, that I should mention would be the people search engines. So these are the guys, you go online and you pay them $9.95 or something, and they will tell you anyone's address, home phone number, email, and then they might tell you their criminal record and all sorts of other information that you can collect on them. And, they are an issue because, a lot of people don't want their address out there. When I was a kid, the only way you could find someone's address and phone number was from the phone book, which was distributed by the phone company every year. And you could contact the phone company and say, you could say, delist me, and they would take you out of the phone book. And your information was still technically out there, like it was in some public database somewhere, but you basically needed to hire a private investigator to find out that information because it wasn't in the phone book. You can think of a lot of circumstances where someone would really not want their information listed. They might be a public official, an elected official. There is indications, if you recall, there were some state officials murdered over the past few years. There's some indications that the attackers found their information from some of these public data brokers. If you are fleeing a domestic violence situation and you do not want your ex or whoever it was to locate you. You don't want your address to be in this database. And what happens is you move out of state, you move a few towns over, whatever, you set up a new apartment. Well, you need electricity. You need to, turn on the water or whatever. And the electrical utility maybe not intentionally sell, but, your information ends up in a credit reporting agency. And from there, it can sometimes find its way to data brokers. So it's very hard. You can't just say, no, nobody can share my information. You have to give this information out. Once you give it out, you don't have a lot of control over it. So that's, and I guess the last thing I would say is another thing that data brokers do, some data brokers, is they take this information and they compile it into lists, which they sell. And the lists could be for lead generators. It could be for marketing purposes. And some of them might be, fairly anodyne, like lists of people who are in the market for a new car. Okay. Lists of people who are over 45 years old. And they may get that because they have the actual data or they've derived it. But then there's evidence some of these data brokers are selling things like list of gullible people, list of people who are desperate for money. Okay. At one point, there was someone was actually selling a list of rape victims. I mean, why would someone want to buy one of these lists? What could the purpose be? And predatory businesses, scammers, fraudsters, like, back in the day, if you were a con artist, your step one in a con is research the victim. And that's kind of a time intensive thing. These guys have just industrialized the research on the victims and made it much easier. So it's like you combine the research part from data brokers. Now you have AI that can be used to, generate voices and scripts and all sorts of things. Like this industrialization of scamming is kind of starting to become a thing. So that's some of the examples.
Thanks for that.
So we see states are having to take state by state approach to lay down privacy laws. What are the different methods of enforcing data privacy at the state level?
So the main method of enforcement is for the Attorney General's office to be given the authority. And almost every Attorney General's office has authority to enforce their Consumer Protection Act. So a lot of these laws will just say, this law is enforced in the same way as the Consumer Protection Act. And that's an easy way because that says, so you have subpoena power, here are the remedies you can get, here are the penalties you can do. You don't have to repeat it in the law. California, famously, their law created a new agency, the California Privacy Protection Agency, CPPA, I believe that's what it is. And so the AG there still does enforcement, but they also have a dedicated agency which is independent of the AG that is doing privacy enforcement. To my knowledge, no other state has done that yet. Some states have a separate consumer protection agency or division, so they may have some authority to do that sort of things. But for the most part, it's the Attorney General and few others who have the authority under the current laws.
I believe Vermont's had a private right of action as part of it. Has that been enacted in other states? Is that new?
To my knowledge, no state has successfully enacted a private right of action. California's law, I believe, has a limited private right of action for certain data breaches, just data breaches. No. So the background, the story goes, in Illinois, there was a law passed in, I want to say 2010, called the Biometric Information Protection Act, BIPA. And BIPA, very short law, it had two main requirements. Businesses had to have a retention schedule for their biometric data. In other words, how long they're going to keep it. And that has to be published so people can know how long it's going to be kept. And they have to get consent before collecting it. That's it. BIPA had a private right of action, and it had what are called statutory damages, $1,000 per violation or $5,000 for intentional violations. And a lot of companies violated the law, and there were a lot of lawsuits. A lot of them got caught up in federal court and thrown out on standing bases. And I think a lot of companies said, "Oh, okay, this is an invalidated law. We don't have to worry about it." But then the Illinois Supreme Court looked at it and said, "Nope, nope, this is a valid law. It can go forward." Shortly after that, I believe Meta, I think it was Facebook at the time, settled its BIPA lawsuit for somewhere, I believe, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So companies are they saw that law, and my theory is that they kind of said, never again. We're going to be in every state house in the country, and we're going to make sure that there is no private right of action in any of these other laws. And they've done a very successful job of making that happen. The private right of action has been really demonized over the past couple decades. It's the same sort of motivation to demonize class actions generally, though those can be a very effective preventative measure in a law.
Okay. So we've heard from some folks, some legislators and advocates, that Connecticut is held up as a really great example. Could you talk to us comparatively about why that model might work or not?
So industry is generally very supportive of the Connecticut model. It certainly provides protections that don't currently exist, but it is not necessarily the strongest law out there. One key distinction, I mentioned data minimization before. So almost every comprehensive law out there says, they have a section called data minimization that says a business, or a collector, a data controller, has to only collect information that is proportional or reasonably necessary for a disclosed purpose. Now, disclosed purpose means they could actually disclose any purpose. If they put a purpose in their privacy statement, they can collect data relevant to it. Whether that purpose is directly relevant to something the consumer wants or not, they can do it. That's in the Connecticut model, and that's in almost every law. And so when companies come out and say you should use the Connecticut law, they're often saying you should use a slightly weaker law. Interestingly, a lot of times when they point to the Connecticut law, they point to the original Connecticut law that was passed a few years back. That law has actually been amended twice to strengthen it. Each time they've strengthened it. I can't speak to exactly what the amendments did, but generally speaking, they don't point to the amended version of the Connecticut law. And this is kind of the strategy that has taken hold. Basically, privacy advocates and consumer advocates all recognized early on that the Connecticut law, while better than nothing, was not the best law.
So did Vermont try to take that ball further down the field, or was it kind of a synthesization of the latest data privacy laws in other states?
From what I have seen, I think that Vermont tried to create a very protective, very privacy protective law. I think it tried to, I haven't looked at every law, so I can't say that it went farther than any other law currently under, but it really tried to fix all the things that privacy advocates think need to be fixed. And I got to give a shout out to Representative Monique Priestley. She has been the mastermind behind this law. Our legislature has spent a lot of time with privacy laws. When the data broker law happened, there were so many hearings about it. So I think our legislature is very well educated about privacy generally, at least the committees that handle it. They've dealt with it a lot. But Representative Priestley is like a whole other level. She's really dug into the guts of these bills. She has spoken to academics, and experts and advocates and industry. She's really tried to get a very deep understanding of these issues and tried to craft language that reflects the understanding. And that is reflected in the bill that she proposed.
Well, Andy, you should go to our last question.
I mean, this might be a difficult one for you to have an opinion on as well. We are wondering, when you go to a creamy stand in Vermont, what are you ordering?
Gosh. If they have a maple creamy sundae, right? So you're talking maple creamy, maple syrup, crushed sugar on that. And gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the creamy stand. It's about 2 miles northeast of Montpelier. Morse Farm.
Oh,
Those guys. They make
awesome.
They make amazing maple syrup. They also make an amazing maple sundae. Otherwise, I go to Dairy Cream down the street. I like a coffee creamy, throw some crushed up Heath bars on that, throw either caramel sauce or hot fudge. I mean, if it's got enough sugar in it, it's all good, honestly. That's what I say. Yeah.
Now, follow-up question. Do you ever get sprinkles?
I don't think I've gotten sprinkles in a long time. I like to put things, crushed up Oreos maybe.
Okay.
M&Ms, but sprinkles don't tend to have a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
Like they don't, I mean, they're nice, but they give a little texture, but yeah.
We have a big inter-podcast rift about sprinkles. So you're on team no sprinkles with Andy, but we still like you.
There is actually, I had to raid my Sunday toppings cabinet.
Oh my gosh. You're amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I take this stuff seriously. So if we're talking sprinkles, De Ruyter, this is the go-to. So these are milk chocolate. Apparently some folk, wherever they're from, they put them on bread. So that's the, I believe, the dark chocolate.
Whoa.
And then you can get the multi-pack of all sorts of different. So these guys, I am told these are the best.
Wow.
Okay? So if you really care about sprinkles, flavorful sprinkles, that's the way to go. Okay, that's my recommendation.
I am amazed and blown away. I'm definitely going to check this out.
Yeah, go and yeah, let me know what you guys think.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such an important issue, and Vermonters are still learning about it, and you're really helping us out here, so thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
Thank you all for listening.
Follow us between episodes for the latest updates on our socials at There's No A in Creamy on Instagram, Substack, and Blue Sky.
And catch us on our next episode of There's No A in Creamy, Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.